Of course, the hottest elections that are coming up this year, we call it an off-year election. We don't have a lot of people on ballots nationally, of course, because it's an odd year versus an even year, and you don't have a lot of people statewide as well. But we have a lot of activity going on in local elections throughout the Magic Valley. It's coming up on 7 minutes after 9 o'clock. Call it to 44 still. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. We actually have one's a future politician. We have two of them in studio with us this morning. Rebecca Mills-Sojka joining us. She is an incumbent running for re-election in the 5th District to Twin Falls City Council. And, of course, you have the next generation with you today.
Yes. Thank you for inviting him.
Yes.
He appreciates it.
I met him about 2 months ago, I guess, at an event downtown.
Uh-huh.
And his name's Lionel, right?
Yes, Lionel Sojka. Yeah, and he's going to be 5 months old tomorrow.
And he's already found that he likes the microphone.
He does, and he likes to talk. So this is the perfect place for him.
We were just chatting off air about the race this year. You've got a lot of people. It's almost as many people what is on a baseball team running for office right now.
Yeah.
And in your district, oddly enough, you've got 3 candidates. And I was reading the reviews the other day in the newspaper of the 3 of you sat down, and of course there was a bit of a forum where you all got to talk about your various issues and the like. Clearly, though, you feel you're the right person for the job because you're planning to do it all over again.
Absolutely. And what's interesting about the city of Twin Falls is people actually choose their opponents. They choose who they run against. And so we don't have districts per se. We don't have a geographical area that you need to live in. We just have seats 1 through 7. And so I hold seat 7. And so I do have 2 opponents that chose to run in that seat. And so that's something that actually has been something that people have been talking about. How do people choose? And some people want districts. Some people want to be represented by geographical area because as it is right now, I mean, your council people may live or all in the same area of town. And so it's kind of interesting. But I do want to continue on the city council, the work that I've started over the past 5 years. I've been able to accomplish a lot. One of the best things that we did is we opened up our committee meetings. And we used to just have a process where we would take 3 council members and they would meet privately with some citizens and with staff and work on legislation or work on some changes and then bring it to council at the end when it's finished. And so that didn't really allow for as much public input and for the work to be done in the public eye. What's great about the Idaho Open Meeting Laws, it says that, the legislature declares that public policy making is public business and should not be done in secret. And when I read that, that really struck me, and I thought, you know what? Let's change our process. And so, what was great is after quite a bit of heated debate, the council and the staff, we all decided that this was the best direction to go in.
The fascinating part about your race, and I'm sort of an outside observer, just looking in on all of this, and still being a relative newcomer to Twin Falls. I think you got to live here 25 years before they say otherwise.
I think so.
But is that first of all, 3 women running for 1 seat? It's nonpartisan in city elections, but my guess is you're probably all members of the same political party. And,
That's true.
And 2 of you are very young, and number 3 is not old by any means. But this is from a voter standpoint. It's probably if a newcomer is here, difficult to sort out everyone.
Yeah, I think what's great about me is that people can look at my record. They can look at what I've done, the projects that I've accomplished on council, like the dog park and, connecting our bicycle paths, making them easier for people to travel throughout the city by bike. I've also worked on community garden policy and just things that better the community and make it a better place to live. And you can look at my voting record and you know what you're going to get. And I think that's the difference. I have experience and I have a lot of successes on the council in passing motions and legislation through that really makes government more transparent, makes government more accessible to the people. And that's what people can know for sure that they're going to get in voting for me.
The one difference that was cited in the newspaper between all of you. Well, we'll get to that in a moment, but since you're here, we'll let the folks calling in have a chance to talk with you at this point, and with Lionel as well.
Yes.
He's giving a ringing endorsement to his mother while she's here this morning. Let's go to the telephone, 736-0300. Rebecca Mills-Sojka is joining us in studio today. She is running for re-election to the Twin Falls City Council. We have a caller with us, and caller, you're up next. You're on the air with a candidate.
Hi. Hey, excuse me. Councilwoman Sojka, or Mills, talks about the open meeting laws and passing that, but when it came to the final vote, she voted against it. Can she talk to that a little bit and tell us why?
Sure, that's a great question. When I talk about my original resolution, that actually failed 5-2, and only Councilman Chris Talkington was in favor of opening up these meetings. After some debate out in the public, and when the council saw that the public was really for opening up these meetings, the mayor decided to write his own resolution with staff, and it's a good resolution. And the reason there were a couple of technicalities that I felt really weakened the transparency. And there was an exception for when they interview candidates for commissions, and there's an exception for when they appoint people. And so I really wasn't for those exceptions, and I tried to make an amendment to change that. There also, it was a numbers game. Instead of 3 council members, it was 2, so they can secretly meet with 2 council members and just not 3. 3 is one less than a quorum. And so, for me, those were just technicalities. I still feel that it was going in the right direction, but those technicalities I really wasn't comfortable with.
Want to thank the caller, and we have another caller right behind him. You're up next. You're on the air at 9:13 on Top Story. Rebecca Mills-Sojka, our guest on News Radio 1310 KLIX, joining me, Bill Colley. And what's on your mind?
Hi, I have a question for
Sure,
Rebecca.
go ahead.
Okay. We have a conservative community that we live in, and my question has to do with the extra rights for the gay and lesbian population that she spearheaded a while ago for the handbook in the city. Our current mayor, Don Hall, didn't believe that it was a needed change because there was already an anti-harassment policy in place. Was this a one-time thing, I'm wondering, or do you plan to do more of this kind of thing in our conservative community, Rebecca?
Oh, thank you for the question. I actually am conservative, but I don't believe in harassment or poor treatment of people that I disagree with. I mean, it's just a city employee should be able to come to work and not be harassed or discriminated against based on their sexual orientation. And the reason it's not an extra right. I would disagree with the question in that way. What it is there's a list of statuses that the city says, okay, we won't discriminate against people based on their gender, based on their religion, based on their race or ethnicity. And so what I said is, hey, we don't have sexual orientation in here. It has nothing to do with religious beliefs, because I'm a Christian and I'm proud of my religious beliefs. But I don't believe that anybody should be harassed or discriminated against. And I believe in, do unto others as you would have them do to you. I don't want to be discriminated against for my religion or my gender. And those are two things that can really happen. Or I went to a liberal college and I was Republican, and I was a college Republican, and I was an officer. And so I was discriminated against and harassed at college. And so I just have compassion. And I think whether we disagree or agree with people, we need to treat them with respect and kindness. And I believe that's a very strong Christian principle that Jesus was a very good example for us.
I want to throw one at you because we're coming down to about 4 minutes to go here.
Sure.
I've always thought that when it comes to city elections, people vote more about snow removal, and they vote more about, does the water come out when I turn on the faucet? But, some of these issues, social issues like that, as well as the refugee center issue, these are getting a lot of attention in the city. But from your perspective, when you go door to door, do you find that just the nuts and bolts issues, the streets, potholes, water coming on, snow removal, are those things outweighing some of these other issues?
Yeah, it really it is differing from person to person. Some people are more passionate about the refugee issue, and what I've told people is that if we're a community that doesn't want refugees and that we are not comfortable with that, then the city council will have to listen. And the representative from the refugee program at the forum said, We won't send people. We will not send people to a community that does not want them. So, that's something I will do. And I personally am comfortable with the screening process. I'm comfortable with refugees coming here. I have nothing but compassion for them because most of them are just fleeing persecution and they're fleeing atrocities and war and violence. And so I have compassion. But if our community does not want them here, then I respect that. I think you're right. The last election, our roads. The last time I ran for election, the roads were in really bad shape, and that was a major issue. We've since doubled funding for our maintenance, and Lionel agrees the roads are in better shape. We've more than doubled funding, annual maintenance and preventative maintenance for roads. So we've made good progress, and I think the reason why these social issues are a little bit higher in priority is because we are doing such a good job on the necessities, on the basics, on the water, the wastewater, and I think those things are going well. And we've done a good job. We actually, this year we did not raise rates for water or sewer, which is really quite an accomplishment on the city staff's part.
Got about 1 minute left. So, my caller, if you're making a statement, we don't have time, but if you've got a question, we've got to get it out quickly so the candidate can answer. Go ahead.
How do you feel about Kimberly wanting to become, or some people in Kimberly wanting to become separate from your sewer system? And would you encourage Kimberly to stay part of your wastewater treatment plant?
Good question.
Yes, that is a good question. And you know what? I believe in people's right to be heard and to do what they want to do. And so I respect the voters of Kimberly. They should make that decision for themselves. They need to do what's best for their community. They need to do what they think is best for themselves. And so I really would not encourage them either way. I think the system that we have works well for Twin Falls. It works well for us. But if that doesn't work well for them, then I would encourage them to have control over their own system if that's what they desire.
And we want to thank him for the call. Of course, we're going to be talking a lot more in the future about growth issues, and that's all related to that. We've talked about them before, too, as well. We've got about 30 seconds to go. Any last words for people?
Sure. I would just encourage you to vote Rebecca on November 3rd. And if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, please reach out and call me. You can call City Hall. You can contact me on my Facebook page. But I'm very accessible. I'm very open, and I love representing the people. And if you look at my record, I always side with the people, the majority of the citizens, and I care about what is good for the entire community.
And tomorrow, Neil Christensen joins us. Of course, he's a challenger, not to Rebecca, we should point out.
Correct.
He'll be joining us in studio. He's also looking for a seat on the council. I just wanted to remind people of that you can hear him tomorrow morning, 20 minutes after 9 o'clock. Want to thank Rebecca and Rebecca Mills-Sojka and Lionel, too. Right. He's having fun over there with a microphone right now.
He is. Thank you.
Please warn him not to do this for a living. Trust me. I don't need the competition. And the younger folks taking all the jobs. We've got more coming up in just a moment. Bill Colley with you. Speaking of emigres, Donald Trump making some statements, getting some people a little fired up when it comes to closing mosques. That's ahead.